هذا رمضان شهر صفاء الروح فيه الإحسان والأنوار تدور هذا رمضان.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I start with the name of Allah Ta'ala. I praise Allah, I thank Him, and I humbly ask Him to raise the rank of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his kind al and companions, and to protect his nation from that which he fears for them. Inshallah, in this session we are going to explain a complete chapter of fasting. This chapter, as you can see on the screen, it includes 5 different sections, right? So we are going, inshallah, to cover all the sections in details. And let's start with the first section that is titled Obligation of Fasting Ramadan. Let's start with this section. So please follow up with me on the screen. I'll be reading and then explaining, inshallah azza wa jal. So the author, rahimahullah, said, fasting the month of Ramadan is obligatory by any of 5 matters. What does this mean? It means that if any of these 5 matters, which we are going to mention now, they are listed here in this slide. If any of these 5 matters happen, fasting becomes obligatory upon this person, upon this Muslim. What are these 5 matters, and what is the explanation of each item, each point? Let's see it. Bismillah. The author said, completing 30 days of Sha'ban. What does that mean? So as we know, after the sun sets on the 29th of Sha'ban, what do Muslims do usually? So Muslims, they go out to the western horizon and they observe, they watch, they want to see what? They want to do the crescent sighting, the moon sighting. So they will observe. If they see the crescent of Ramadan, it means the next day is the 1st of Ramadan. And the month of Sha'ban would be 29 days. And if Muslims do not see the crescent of Ramadan, so the next day would be the 30th of Sha'ban, and the day that follows is the 1st of Ramadan, right? So by completing 30 days of Sha'ban, it means that's it, because the month, it's either 29 days or 30 days. So by completing 30 days of Sha'ban, again, that's it. It means the next day is Ramadan. That is one. What is the second point? He said, the author rahimahullah said, seeing the crescent in reference to the one who saw it himself. That is, fasting is obligatory on the one who personally saw the crescent, even if he was a major sinner. What does that mean? So if a person, as we know, if a person is a major sinner and he sees the crescent of Ramadan, he observed, he saw the crescent. If this person who is a major sinner, he is not upright, he is not adl, if he sees the crescent of Ramadan and he went to the judge and he testified before the judge that he saw the crescent of Ramadan, the judge would not rely on his testimony to announce to the public, to the community, to the Muslim community, that tomorrow is the first day of Ramadan. He would not take his testimony. Why? Because he is not upright, he is not adl. The witness, the person who wants to see the crescent and testifies, for the judge to take his testimony, he needs to be adl, he needs to be upright. But in this case, we're speaking about a person who saw the crescent, even if he is a major sinner, and even if the judge would not take his testimony, it is obligatory upon him to what? To fast the next day, because he saw it. That is for himself, right? So that's the meaning of seeing the crescent in reference to the one who saw it himself. That is, fasting is obligatory on the one who personally saw the crescent, even if he was a major sinner. So why did the author mention even if he was major sinner? Because of what I've just explained. That is, the judge would not take his testimony to announce to the community, to the Muslim community, that the beginning of Ramadan is the next day. Let's see the third point. The author rahimahullah said, the testimony of an upright Muslim, that is adl, upright, that is adl. An upright Muslim who saw the crescent and whose testimony is acceptable. So if an upright Muslim, an adl Muslim, testifies before the judge that he saw the crescent of Ramadan, then the judge would accept his testimony, and he accordingly, he will do what? He will announce to the Muslims that the crescent has been sighted and tomorrow is the first day of Ramadan, the beginning of the month of Ramadan, right? So what's the condition here? What's the requirement? The person who testifies need to be upright, adl. And that is only for Ramadan. We're speaking about one person. So if only one person testifies who is upright, he testifies that he saw the crescent, the judge would accept and announce. That is only for Ramadan. For other months, the judge needs at least two. The judge needs at least two upright Muslims. As for Ramadan, he would rely on one. He would accept one to announce the start or the beginning of the month of Ramadan. Then, next point, being informed by someone whom you believe that he saw the crescent, whether this person was trustworthy or a major sinner, male or female, and even if this person did not testify before the judge about his sighting. So didn't we explain that the judge, for him to rely on a testimony of a person, this person needs to meet certain conditions. He needs to be a male, he is a Muslim male who is upright. So there are conditions, right? So here we are speaking about a case where, let's say, a person came to another person, and this person, he came to his friend, for example. He was a major sinner, and he told his friend, I saw the crescent of Ramadan, right? He is a major sinner. He is not upright. So the judge would not rely on his testimony, would not take his testimony to announce to the Muslim community that the crescent has been sighted and Ramadan starts tomorrow. He wouldn't do this, the judge. However, this major sinner came to his friend, and his friend trusts him. He knows that he does not lie about this. He believes that he would say the truth. So a major sinner told his friend, I saw the crescent of Ramadan. So it becomes obligatory upon this person. He believed him. He knows he wouldn't lie about this. It became obligatory upon him to what? To fast. Or a person, his wife came to him. His wife, a female. So a female, if she goes to the judge wouldn't take her testimony to announce the beginning of Ramadan. But for her husband, she came to her husband and she told him, I saw the crescent of Ramadan. And he believed her. He knows she does not lie about these things. It becomes obligatory upon him to what? To fast. Okay, that's the meaning of number 4. And he said, even if this person did not testify before the judge about his sighting. Number 5, he said, by an ijtihad, and then he continues to say, of a prisoner, for example. He gave an example about a prisoner. Now we will give more examples. But let's read it first. He said, by an ijtihad of a prisoner, for example, who has some ambiguity about the beginning of the month, like the one who was in constant darkness and could not distinguish between the day and the night. So the 5th matter is ijtihad. Let us give an example to understand what is ijtihad. Imagine if a person is imprisoned, right? Or he falls into a huge hole. He got stuck in a place where he does not know anymore the time, the day, the night. He cannot distinguish between the day and the night. He fell into a huge hole, or he was imprisoned. What would he do in this case to know when he needs to start fasting? He needs to make ijtihad. He needs to put forth effort to come up with a valid assumption based on his effort. He needs to do this estimation. He needs to make ijtihad and come up with an assumption, a valid assumption, which he will rely on to decide when he will fast. Right? That is the meaning of ijtihad. So he needs to put forth effort, do the estimation, do what he needs to do to come up with the valid assumption, which he will use, he will rely to decide when he will start fasting. Now, even in this case, he would not rely on astronomical calculations. Even if he was stuck and he is imprisoned, and he wouldn't rely on astronomical calculations. So that is something that, according to our to the rules that came in the religion, we do not use this method to determine the beginning of the month. The Prophet ﷺ said, نحن أمة أمية لا نكتب ولا نحسب. What does this mean? It does not mean that there is no one among us who knows how to write or calculate. No, that's not the meaning. There were people for sure who knew how to write and how to calculate. This is not something new. Astronomical calculations, it's not something new. The Arab knew it since that time. But the Prophet ﷺ is telling us that we do not rely on this method to determine the beginning of the month. We do not take this method as our route or as our path to determine the beginning of the month. The Prophet ﷺ said, صوموا لرؤيته وأفطروا لرؤيته فإن غم عليكم فأكملوا عدة شعبان 30. So we rely on what? On the sighting. On the sighting.